An old friend of mine, Baron, rest in peace, good buddy. See you someday. He had started a bit of a minor revolution in my consciousness with a general idea. And it was, he would say in meetings sometimes, or if he was telling a story, he'd say, if you don't like something I said, take it up with God. God's the reason I'm still alive. And I thought, wow, there's truth to that. And I think, and the other thing he would say is it's mind over matter. If I don't mind, it don't matter. And there's so much truth in that, man. It's like a perception thing. And I've got a few stories I want to back up this general idea with. One story is, I heard this guy talk about the Marines. He used to be a trainer, and he said that they took out some new recruits for a 20-mile march or hike. And at the 10-mile marker, they had everyone take a break, rehydrate, get some water, take a little rest, and then the drill sergeants would approach one of the cockier guys on the march. He had all this enthusiasm and thought he could do anything. And that's just kind of like what they really want, right? But they approached the guy and they were praising him. They said, geez, man, we just got to congratulate you. You are freaking amazing. I mean, on this march, everyone is required to carry 30-pound packs. Well, we snuck in 20 extra pounds in your backpack. And here it is, 10 miles in, and you're just like a trooper, man. You're just rocking and rolling, and you're doing really good. Wow. We just want to tell you, it's like we're really proud of you. And the moral of that story is that the guy couldn't finish the 20-mile hike because he had 20 extra pounds in his pack and he couldn't finish. And how did he get all that extra weight in his pack when in reality, they didn't put 20 extra pounds in his pack? And he believed them. He believed them. So it's a story that he told himself about the story that they told him that made him imprison himself in his own understanding or misunderstanding. Doesn't matter what, but there's this thing about belief, yeah, Baron was right. It's mind over matter. If I don't mind, it don't matter. The first and the last push-up are always the hardest ones, right? The first one, because you got to get yourself down there in the first place, and the last one, because it's the hardest one to do. Oh, of course, the first and the last. But another story that I heard, oh man, I don't know, 30 years ago in some inspirational talk about the same general topic. And it was related about how baby elephants would, at the circuses, have their feet chained, or just one foot, the right front, I think they would usually chain, and they would pound a stake into the ground that was strong enough to keep that baby elephant from pulling it out. And, babies as they are, they'll just try to get loose, and they don't have any rules in their head yet that says they can or they can't, right? And they would do this to the baby elephants until they quit trying to resist. They would just assume that they're locked in. And when they were adults, they would just, carnival folks would just put a rope around their foot, and they would put a light stake into the ground, and the elephant would just feel any resistance on its leg, on its foot, and just assume it couldn't get away. I mean, it got trained that they couldn't get it out. And here's this huge, full-grown, powerful animal that could just snap right out of that puppy, but they don't, because they got it in their heads that they can't get out. And you know where I'm going with all this. I think this is true on the elephant, the mammal department, but also in insects. A study was done on fleas. And they would take a bunch of fleas and they would put them in a jar. And of course, the fleas have this ability to jump much higher than their body height. I mean, they could jump from, one animal to another. They can jump off of the ground. They see an animal going by and they can jump on that animal. So they have this really strong ability to jump far beyond their own size. And, even grasshoppers can jump, 100 times their length of their bodies. Well, it's even more so with the fleas. They can jump proportionately farther than a grasshopper. Now, in this study, they would take the fleas and they'd put them in this jar, as I said, but then they screw a lid on the jar. And the fleas, naturally would try to get out of the jar, and they would jump and they would hit the lid. And they would hit it and they would bounce back, and they'd hit it and they'd hit it and they'd keep bouncing back. But over time, the fleas learned to only jump so high. And eventually, slowly but surely, they would jump. They wouldn't stop jumping, but they wouldn't jump far enough to hit the lid. And then they would unscrew the lid. And interestingly enough, amazingly enough, they wouldn't jump out of the jar, as if it still had a lid. And they'd jump, they do all the stuff, they jump, but here they are, trapped. And it reminds me of this one last story. I think it was Zig Ziglar, if I remember right, told this story. He said the story goes, I don't know if it's true or not, but I assume it's not true. But he makes a really good point. And he said he used to jog around this lake every day. And every day on the one section of this lake, he would see this guy fishing. And he noticed that the fellow would catch really big fish, but he'd throw them back, but he'd catch a small fish and he'd keep it. And as far as Zig knew, there wasn't any law about having to throw back big fish and keep the little ones, And it's counterintuitive. I mean, most people are going to keep the bigger fish because, there's a lot more meat there, and he'd cook up those fish, and he'd eat them right there, fry those puppies up. But one day his curiosity just got the best of him. He just saw this guy doing this over and over. Every day he was out jogging, and he finally decided to ask the guy. He jogged up to him and stopped and excused himself, said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't mean to interrupt what you're doing here, but I just got to ask you. I've just noticed every day I'm out here jogging and you're catching big fish, but you're throwing the big fish back. But you're keeping the little fish. I mean, do you mind if I ask you, why are you doing this?" And the guy chuckles a little bit and he points to his frying pan. He says, "Well, isn't it obvious? All I've got is this itty bitty frying pan." Oh my gosh, isn't this what we do to ourselves? I take it like the fifth step of admitting to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, we assume by doing that with our old thinking that it's self-injurious, that we're going to be hated, we're going to get in trouble, we might go to jail, and whatever it is, we might lose our marriage and lose the respect of our friends because they're going to find out we did these things. And one of the really cool things about society is that they really respect the program of recovery. And I'm not going to name it because we're supposed to be anonymous at the level of press, radio, and films and TV and all that. It seems to be less of a constraint these days, but I'm still going to honor that general idea, But we actually end up doing the fifth step, because if we don't, we might end up drinking again, because our fear of doing the fifth step is stronger than our desire to stay sober. But the reality is, at least this is partly why I did the step, is because I knew if I drank again, I would do the things that I didn't want anyone to know about again. And I just had to do it, and I wanted to be sober. I was willing to go to any lengths. But it wasn't just like this idea that made me step up and do step 5. It was actually the result of a prayer, because I didn't want to do the step. And I finally, somebody says, you got to do it, man, just pick a date, and the universe will take care of it for you. So, okay, I picked a date on the calendar, and then I went home and I got on my knees and I asked God. I said, God, I don't want to do this step. I don't trust anybody. If you want me to do this step, you're going to have to tell me who to do it with, because I got nothing. I don't know who to do it with. And as soon as I said, just let me know who I should do the step with, bam, I saw the face of Mary Jo Robinson above and in front of me. And the picture of her face was so crystal clear. It was like illuminated with a spiritual light. And it's one I've seen that spiritual light before a few times in my life. And I could see her face more clearly than when I'm sitting and talking to somebody. And I knew that the light of God was in that face, that reconstruction, and that I was given a vision of who I should do my fifth step with. So the reason I did my fifth step is because God answered a prayer, because God wanted me to do the fifth step. And I was amazed. It was beyond my human comprehension. I could not have imagined her face like that. Maybe if I was on LSD or something, right? Maybe. But it's the limitations that we set ourselves up for. And when I did the fifth step, I actually did not go to prison. She didn't go out and tell everybody the things that I admitted to have done in my life. And in fact, she admitted something she did in her life that just told me I'm a human. I'm just a human being. Welcome to the human race. That was the message. How can I get my face back here, And so I better cut this video out. It's getting darker out, and I think I'm losing some light here. But the spiritual light within us, because, real sunshine comes from the inside out. But nothing bad happened. I thought something bad would happen, and nothing bad happened, And so there you have it. Sorry about the lovely picture we got going on here. There, it's back. Peace out, everybody. Don't let the disease of perception limit you. Remember, you are free. Go back to your original self, and you'll find out that you've always been free. Peace out. Keep your prayers on. Love you. Bye.